Up, buddy.
Welcome everyone to another Friday Mortgage Coach Productivity Mastermind call. I am Todd Bookspan, the founder of Win by Noon, and I am so excited to have you guys here. Dave will be with us shortly, but I'm super excited to have my co-host, Deborah Bird. What's up, Deborah?
Hello, how are you? Can you tell us where you're at?
You know, I am in beautiful Scottsdale, Arizona. That is a cacti, and there's a golf course behind me. I was going to pick even a beautiful spot with the golf course, even better with the sun's hitting me now. But there was people talking over there, so I came over to this cute cabana. But I am here. This is actually Mortgage Mecca this week. There is right up here on the balcony is the Core's big event. I think they've got 500 loan officers there. And then over to my right, I'm attending. Michael Regan from Building Champions is hosting a little more intimate mastermind that I was privileged to have the part of. So it is beautiful out. I'm actually sweating in the sweatshirt. It's like 80 degrees already. Like this sun over here is burning me up. But
I was going to ask, why in the world are you wearing a long sleeve in Arizona?
I was inside. I'm inside. I'm a wimp when it comes to that. So
Got it.
there we go. See, hi from beautiful Scottsdale. Cynthia's here as well. And really more importantly, I'm excited to have our special guest today. He's a familiar face to this group. I think that I would call him one of our top three, if not top, real estate professional friends who has continued to contribute to this market. It's someone I've known for about a decade, Kevin Kauffman, who you guys have seen on here before. But really more importantly, you know, he's become a great friend over the last few years. A lot of you who've tuned in have heard us have banter back and forth with Dave with regards to not just real estate and our, real estate community, but also with health and other things that we're super passionate about. And over this time, he's also become good friends with Dave. So welcome, Kevin.
Thanks a lot for having me back, man. I'm excited to be here.
All right. So are you in a hotel room?
I am, yeah. So my lighting is not quite as good as yours, but at least it's a decent hotel room. So we're just wrapping up our EXP conference this week and getting ready. I'm actually coming back home right after this. So I'm a little hoarse. Excuse me. I've been talking nonstop for the last few days.
You know,
I
why
was going to ask you
about that?
I was going to ask Kevin if he was in Vegas for the EXP.
Yeah. Me and what seemed like 17 million other realtors. But
Well, there you go. And so let me kind of set it up for you guys. So Kevin leads a large team. They're in multi-states. They do over $100 million a year. And then he also leads a really large network at EXP. And, one of the fun things was, we were going to a Genius Network event together right near his office, right when he signed on with EXP. And I just remember him literally his phone ringing all day as people were calling him who wanted to learn why he made the change and what he did. And it's really helped him grow a super effective network because he's really a great leader, a great coach, and someone who just is a lifelong learner is what I really love about Kevin. So he's the guy that I drag him out, at least once a quarter. We try to grab a healthy lunch, and I just pick his brain about what he's doing, whether it's with health, whether it's with finances, whether it's with real estate, whether it's with growing his team and expanding. And so I was super excited because I laughed with Dave. Dave's like, anything else we have to talk about? And I said, who are we having on the call tomorrow? He's like, we're having Kevin. I'm like, yes, I didn't even know. So I know we kind of teed it up that we were going to talk a little bit about the Zillow news to start. So kind of give us your take on that. We've talked a lot about it the last 10 days or so in our community. Where do you stand on that whole thing?
I find that super interesting. I think now there's a new twist to it that is added that I'll probably have a less favorable opinion on in terms of Zillow. But first of all, I'm surprised. I know a lot of people like to say they're not, and they got what was coming to them, blah blah blah. For some reason, a lot of folks don't like them. I have less of I don't dislike Zillow or any of these other disruptors because I feel like what they've done is they've forced the people in our industries to realize that the consumers want and expect something different and better. And so, if nothing else, I appreciate that about them. I was surprised to see them make a full-blown stop as opposed to maybe just slow down and try to work through the problems. I really don't think it had anything to do with their pricing algorithms. I think it had a lot more to do with my hunch is probably some supply chain stuff and getting homes turned around. That is so hard. Everyone I'm talking to right now that's doing anything on scale with flipping homes is struggling to get their homes back on the market, whether for rent or for sale. So I think that had a lot to do with it. And I think when you have when you've raised the kind of money that they've raised in the last couple of years, there's probably a lot more demand to do things quicker. And this might have just felt like a safer route. I think additionally, as they've moved from their Zillow Premier selling of leads to their Zillow Flex program, I think that has an extra cushion for them because there's a significantly larger amount of income available to them through that Zillow Flex referral program, as opposed to just selling a realtor a zip code with a certain number of leads every month. No matter how expensive that zip code is, a converted lead with a referral fee is worth so much more. And so my hunch is they'll lean back into that. I'm still really surprised they put the brakes on this completely, and I'm not so sure that it's dead forever. Like I won't believe them unless they don't buy another house for 10 years. But the more interesting part too, that's like the newer thing, is now everyone is realizing, and this has been going on forever. And by the way, Open Door OfferPad does this too, selling homes directly to other larger institutions. And I think the reason why that's important is because these are, for the most part, what I would call first-time home buyer homes. Like these are most the price ranges of the homes that companies like Zillow and Open Door, OfferPad, et cetera, buy. They're not the move-up homes typically. They're the first-time homes, and the fact that they're moving these directly to institutions where these homes are not coming back on the market, right? Once they go to one of these funds, they're not ever back on the market, and that cuts out a good portion of people, and truthfully, in the quote unquote American dream.
Yeah, interesting take. I really love that. And we've got Dave here, so I don't know, Dave, if you wanted to jump in and ask a question before I pile on.
Yeah, so couple of things, Kevin. I mean, it's awesome to have a guy like you on today's call to ask these questions. So kind of netting out, and I had a similar suspect that you think Zillow got out, not because of the algorithm and the tech, it's more they underestimated, call it the non-technical stuff of buying and moving homes. And it doesn't scale as well as they thought. Plus we're in this inflationary zone. So it's not going to get easier to buy, fix, and flip. And you just think that, call it the non-digital disruption part of that model was, like they tried it, they know what it scales, they know what it costs, and they're like, there's higher margin, more digital disruption to be done. And this is no longer a top priority. Is that netting it out?
Yeah, I think that's pretty close. I think the thing I would add to that is I don't think they're done forever again. And it's just surprising to me that this just feels like a knee-jerk reaction. And my hunch is that probably has to do with, I mean, you've seen they've raised money twice since they started Zillow Offers, additional funds outside of just selling more of their stock, but they've sold some bonds or whatever. I want to say at least 2 times in the last 3 years. And my hunch is there's extra demand on getting results sooner rather than later, and they don't have the timeline to work with where they could actually let this work out.
Right. Yeah. No, there's investor pressure. So investor pressures combined with the lack of scale with call it the non-tech part of that business model. And then you said something else, which Jason Mitchell did a rant on Facebook a couple weeks ago, might have been a month ago, where the real big problem is not these iBuyers, but these institutional investors that are buying and holding. And that's one of the biggest problems with the shortage of inventory. And then Jason and I are going to do an interview. I think it might be later today on this, but I have this theory that another big problem is that consumers don't know their numbers. There are a lot of move-up families out there that if they really knew the numbers, they would be moving up. But they're not clear and confident about what it means to them. And I also have this theory that, and by the way, that would create inventory if people decide, hey, I need to list my home. And by the way, it may not be moving up, it may be moving down, but it's moving. Like they don't have the numbers and the clarity and the confidence. And I personally think that might be the biggest issue in the country right now, is that not enough consumers have the hyper local knowledge the hyper personal, and then put together in a format that they can easily understand. Oh, that's what moving up looks like. Oh, that's what moving down. Like, to me, that's the number one problem. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it, right? People seem to be so scared right now, and they don't want to do the move up or whatever, because it's, you hear all these different things like, what am I going to buy, or I don't want to spend that much, whatever. We've all heard many reasons, and the reality is like, that is affecting. There's no doubt that's affecting inventory. That's affecting people making moves, and I think it's all kind of those are all straws, right, on the camel's back right now, that is affecting our market and our inventory.
What about this? A piece of advice we've been giving to our community, and really a theme that we've had for a couple months now, is that mortgage professionals, you need to do move up and move down analysis to help agents get more listings. And then you need to be pushing your listing to do your agents to do more CMAs. So we've had this CMA a day challenge, and we think the best way for both local agents and local mortgage professionals to get out there is just be calling consumers that are likely to be in that move up or move down window, do a CMA, partner with your loan officer, and then put that together in a really clear and concise way for them. Do you feel like that's good leadership on our part? I mean, do you validate that strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually got a couple agents on my team that have gone through a couple different shorter, one of them was 2 weeks, one of them was a week of CMA a day, like literally that same thing. And I don't even know where he got it from, to be honest. But I know he shared it with someone else on my team.
Snagged it from me. It's all good.
Of course he did. But I think, yeah, like the reality is I think number one, that's just a great lead generation strategy. Like, if we're gonna be selfish first, because let's face it, we're all in business. If we want to be selfish, that's a great way to generate business. But we're doing that by putting the consumer first and actually going out and educating them and helping them hear through the white noise of all the stuff that we hear.
So can I ask a quick clarifying question to get off this subject slightly, just because I always want to educate our group here. Not everyone is in a market where Zillow Flex exists. Like you mentioned already that it's a referral fee, a pre-qualified buyer. Can you give a little bit of more definition on that? So if there's somewhere where their agent has no idea that Zillow is doing that in other markets, that they can sound educated.
Yeah, so effectively what Zillow has started to do over the last couple of years, and Phoenix was their first, one of their first testing places, like we are for everyone else. They have gone from their Zillow Premier, which is, hey, Todd, I'm going to sell you 85254 for, I don't know, 10 grand a month. And you can have all of the leads or a certain percentage of the leads that come through that zip code, to a referral based thing where they've actually got people picking up the phones and warming up leads, if you will, and then live transferring to the agents in their Flex program. And what the Flex program is it's now you're not having to chase down a lead nearly as much. You don't pay an upfront fee as an agent. You do pay a closing a referral fee of like 35% upon closing. And so effectively what they've started to do, and this is probably the smartest thing that they've done, is they've gone, okay, we understand that most salespeople won't warm up the leads. They won't get them to the point, but they'll all pay us 35% if we just hand them someone who's further down the funnel. And so we'll take care of that front part, get them further down the funnel to the point where they're ready to buy. And then you go close the transaction and pay us a chunk of that commission, which is smart. We've seen so many other companies come up like that over the last 6 to 7 years, but Zillow is likely, to be the largest, my guess. So they've started transferring all of their markets that way. I got to imagine, and it's not like I have any sort of inside information, but I got to imagine at some point they'll move all of their markets to that model. It's just a matter of scale. When you look at the amount of traffic they have and leads, like that's just a scaling issue that there's a lot of people required to pick up phones and things like that to make that happen.
Yeah, it's so interesting to me. And I think one of the interesting pieces, because I know some of the team leaders here who run Flex teams, number one is they're writing really big checks, right? Bigger than the $10,000 you mentioned, as a result of their success every month. And the other thing I think that is really interesting from a leadership perspective. I can't get myself invited to one of the meetings, but I'd love to sit in it. But they really bring them all together, and I hear they're basically ranking them all, right? So they're basically given, hey, you converted 70%, you converted 71%, and they're basically pitting all the teams. And basically, I don't think they're necessarily threatening them, but they're definitely letting them know where they stand compared to the other teams from a conversion rate perspective, and from a, they reach them on the phone perspective. All things I think that as a leader in the mortgage space, you should be looking at for yourself. And then also, especially if you run a team or you're a regional leader, running a group, of the fact that they're really doing a great job of tracking and looking at numbers where we talk about it a lot in our industry, but I don't see people executing at as high a level as they are.
Todd, you and I obviously know so many agents that had big REO accounts in Phoenix, right? This is effectively turning into, this is the new REO account, because what they're doing is they're going to these like I've got a couple good friends in Phoenix that have these accounts, and I guess other places too. And their reps have told them, like, hey, if you hire more agents, I can give you more leads. There's actually a number of leads I can give you per agent on your team. And the reason why is because they understand, listen, this is the thing that Steve D figured out years ago that nobody else did in this space of, in between me as the team leader, you as the mortgage professional, and the corporate side that is going out and generating all these leads, which is, if you just tell me what the guidelines are as the team leader, and then give me the rules of engagement and only make me report to you, as opposed to trying to get 75 agents in my brokerage to do it, you're going to get significantly better results. Zillow is finally, honestly, it's like somebody at Zillow listened to Steve and decided to do it that way, and just go through the teams that have standards and that will answer to somebody, and they're not afraid to go out and recruit to their team.
I love it. We got someone asking about does a lender get involved? Can they do the same thing? And, unfortunately, Zillow owns their own mortgage company. So guess where those leads go? They don't go to you. They go to them. And it's one of those things where I heard Ken Perry say years ago, it's going to be a big joke on all you loan officers and real estate agents when you realize that you actually have been paying fees every month to a company that's eventually going to compete with you.
Yeah. It's, I've heard like a version of that too, of that saying, and there's truth to that. And I also, my other viewpoint of that is, if I do my job correctly, then I'm going to have paid for people that become lifelong customers. And if I do my job correctly, so I'm not worried about that. Like, is that for the average agent? I think that's true. For the person that's going to be in business for the next 10 or 20 years, or at least plans to, I don't view it as that. Yeah, they're competition, but there's going to be, if it wasn't them, it would just be somebody else.
So I love that. All right, note to all of you, think about that. Like, that's such a great view on what most people are negative about. And Kevin's like, hey, if I just do a good job on my database, you guys all have that same opportunity, right? You don't need to complain about the fact that Zillow's in the business. You don't need to complain about Quicken or anyone else who's in the fintech space if you do a better job with your database.
So true.
All right, Dave or Deborah, who wants to jump in?
Yeah, I have a question, Kevin, on how you're helping your agents. I mean, you have such a huge network. How are you helping them, not only with the right now of how it impacts these markets, and some of it may just be from an educational standpoint, because, headline news can scare markets. And like you said, Zillow may not even be, like, I'm in Dallas. So how are you educating your clients for the now pains that they may be having and how they can optimize it? But then what should they be doing today to help nurture their future business 2-3 years from now?
It's you actually said it, it's the education piece. So one of my early mentors just told me, kind of taught me this thing, and said it constantly, and I just started believing them. And it's effectively, the bigger, once your organization, whatever that looks like, whether it's your team or your mortgage company or your brokerage, once it starts to get to a certain size, the only way to actually affect change is to teach and to train. And so for me, it's that constant of that message, of sharing of that message, and making sure that's sharing best practices. One of the advantages I have is I have a great network of other even better, higher producing teams and agents, and some lower producing but different model that are doing things better than we are. to be able to kind of compare and contrast like what's working from that standpoint with our agents and then on down to our consumers. And so I think it always comes back to messaging and teaching. Like we've got to always be teaching.
So I love that you say that, because I don't know if you're aware, we had the Modern Real Estate Summit that was earlier this month. And, we had the best of the best real estate agents come on and share their tips and strategies. And what I've been coaching the loan officers that I work with is to leverage this just vault of knowledge and wisdom and host monthly masterminds and get kneecap to kneecap with your real estate partners who need this training and they need the education. Some of the obstacles that the loan officers have shared, which I don't know, I'd like to get your opinion on, is agents are too busy to come to a meeting once a month. If they were to, even if it's an hour meeting and then you're driving there, it's hard to get agents to commit. Or the good agents are so busy that they're not going to attend, a noon class. What advice would you give to the loan officer listening right now, where they want to provide education? They're a mortgage coach user, so they believe in, the advice and strategies of showing cost over time. How can they get agents there and help build their business?
This one hits home for me because in a lot of ways, I know I like, it says realtor or whatever on my card, but my business models are really not different. I would suggest this. Number one, usually the less productive they are, the busier they are, and busy with quotations around it, right? So understanding who we're in business with. And here's something I've learned as somebody who tries to constantly gather people for an event or something like to learn. What I found is the stronger the relationship I have, the easier it is to get a yes. And then I usually keep getting yeses if I deliver. And I know that could sound trite and maybe oversimplified, but at the end of the day, when I've got a strong relationship with somebody, number one, they trust me, and then they show up, and then I deliver, and so they trust me, and because they got value out of it to build a relationship. I then had to, of course, ask, and I think I had to ask in an appropriate amount of time. And that's really hard with realtors. Like when it's monthly, it's a little bit easier to have it always, maybe it's something where it's like a lunch the same day, the third Wednesday of every month, whatever.
Yeah.
But even that people can forget. And so there's a magic in not inviting too early and not waiting to the last minute either. And so, so finding what that rhythm is to get the people there, but making sure I'm not just springing on everyone 2 days in advance, or not inviting 3 weeks in advance and then never saying anything again. Mm-hmm. So I've got to be able to give appropriate invitations until I've created such value to them that they're asking me when the next one is.
I like that.
And so I think, and it's a lot like anything else, it's a long game.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's something you got to build. So guys, I hope you've written down a couple things that I've written down, and I'll be thinking about reflecting after this meeting. First of all, a few minutes ago, he mentioned why Zillow is successful, and I put in quotation marks, because customers want something different and better. And Zillow has delivered that. And I would push out to any realtor or mortgage professional, is the way that you're communicating, different and better. And it's what the consumer wants. And I think there's a lot of touch points in the mortgage and real estate process that can be improved and can be innovated. And then I love how you answer the question, how do you get people to show up for events? Influence equals relationship. And if you've got a great relationship, you'll have the influence. And then I love that and then you got to deliver. Like if you are someone that says, hey, come to this event, and they come and it was a waste of their time, or it was, they broke even, they're not going to come to the next one, or they're less likely. So I just want, and the other takeaway I hope you guys get out of that, especially for anyone that was inviting people to the Modern Real Estate or the Modern Mortgage Summit, which it's not too late to do these events. It's that you don't invite everybody the same way. You got to start thinking about your database. Who are the people that I have great relationships with in influence? And that should not be a form email that should be a text, a call, something that really respects the relationship. And then, when there's people that you have kind of a medium relationship with, the form email's probably not going to work. It's going to need to be a text. It's going to need to be a call. And so not to say that you don't do form emails and you don't do the social media, but I just want everybody to know it's the things outside of that you do that are the difference between good and great. You agree with that?
Yeah, I was gonna say I'll share something. Like literally, if I showed you my calendar right now, you would see 2 different 30-minute blocks Monday through Friday of what I call 3 to Thrive calls. And they're not actually always calls, but they're me reaching out. And I'm basically inviting somebody to something every day of every work day. I always have something I'm inviting people to. And so it's a matter of, and like to your point, Dave, it's not always a phone call and it's not always an email. And it's not always, and sometimes it's all of those things. And so I think there's that point of like figuring out how, just like I would with consumers, buyers and sellers, I'll communicate with them all the ways until I figure out which way is the best way for them, like how they like to respond best. It's, I guess an easier way of saying that is just meeting people where they're at, right? But yeah, that's a big thing.
I love,
and
I'm always inviting people to something, and I love that 3 to Thrive. Did you say Thursdays or Tuesdays?
I do it Monday, every working day. I have in my calendar 2 spots called 3 to Thrive. I got one in the kind of the first half of the day and one in the second half of the day. And I always just change my event on there to change what, like I'm hosting a mastermind in December. And so I literally changed it this week because for the last 4 weeks, it said, invite people to EXPCon. I'm like it said 3 to, and then now it says 3 to Thrive, invite people to December mastermind. So, and then after that, I'll have something in January. I don't know what yet. I'll make up something to invite people to, but it's my excuse for calling. And because I'm trying to get face to face with people and build deeper relationships. One other thing I want to add in there is when only 2 people show up or 3 people, well, that's the time when we better perform even better. Like it's not when we're on stage and there's 400 people that showed up, or say 25 if that was the goal of the room. But when there's only 2 or 3, cool. Now let's dig in with those 2 or 3 people even more and try to get the best out of it. Because whether they're, I actually think that could be an opportunity, whereas it's really easy. And I've fallen into this many times where you show up and like the turnout is disappointing. But if you look at it from a standpoint of actually have a chance to impact these people, if you're expecting 50 people and 20 people there, cool. We're going to get a little more intimate, right? We're going to go deeper here. Take that opportunity when you've got something and you don't have the turnout that you want to get even deeper with the people who did show up. That's taking care of a little bit before you have a lot.
Great information. Cynthia just said, great information. I'd love to attend one of your mastermind events. So make sure anyone who's listening to this guy, you have the honor of having one of the top leaders, innovators, visionaries in the real estate space. I don't know what Todd said in the introduction, but he's got an EXP network of 1,425 agents. It's got one of the top Facebook groups for agents with over 25,000 agents. And he's just throwing down gold, guys. So I hope you guys are taking notes. If you have questions, make sure you put them in chat, whether you're watching this in our YouTube channel. I'll throw it back to you, Todd.
I'm laughing because the core event just got out. So there's loan officers swarming around me now. I'll check in their voicemails in case you see action and hear action. I just think that was gold. I mean, you guys think about that. There's 30-minute blocks twice a day where he's doing proactive lead gen, right? And so again, think about that in your world. Do you have that intentionality that he has? There's a reason he's got 1,425 agents in his EXP network. It's because he's intentional about building relationships. And it's not just in the real estate world. Kevin knows people in all different businesses. I remember in the Genius Network that there's a financial planner who's kind of there's a lot of financial planners in there, but there's one guy in particular who's in our market. I remember him telling me how he was so grateful because when it was coming to hiring, how Kevin had spent, an hour or 2 with him at his office. I'm helping him with hiring best practices. Kevin listens for what people are talking about and figures out how can I come around and help you regardless of expected return. But guess what happens? I'm sure that financial advisor, he's got realtor clients and friends. And guess what? I'm sure that they're now in Kevin's network because of the fact that he's so abundant and does all of those things. So I just wanted to highlight that piece. By the way, Kevin's Facebook group is called Next Level Agents. It's a great place for you to jump in and join. You want to be a contributor. You don't want to be a spammer or advertiser in that group, but there's just great knowledge in there all the time. He also has a podcast, the Kevin and Fred podcast. I'd be really interested to hear, Kevin. I know that you guys just did a promotion where if someone listened to your podcast, downloaded it, reviewed it, and then tagged a friend or something like that, you guys gave away some stuff. How was that successful? I wonder if any loan officer might be doing a podcast of a way to get more subscribers.
Yeah, it was. We did a little contest, and I just said basically, if you will rate and review the podcast, and if you will, send me a screenshot of it, put you in a drawing, and we gave away 3 pretty cool prizes: Remarkable 2 notebook, an iPad, and some AirPods. And we probably gained another, I don't know, 25 or 30 reviews. Honestly, for the less than $1,000 or whatever that was, I was thinking, gosh, I actually want to do that again. Because the reviews and things like that are invaluable. It's how other people start to discover the show. So I was kind of kicking myself for not having thought of doing that sooner.
All right. So my action plan for all of you is go to wherever you listen to podcasts and go to the Kevin and Fred show and then subscribe. And then listen to it because he's interviewing great thought leaders in the real estate space. And the reason that you do listen to people like Kevin and the reason that you listen to the Modern Real Estate Summit is because you're trying to glean those nuggets, 1 or 2, so that when you're making your 3 to Thrive calls twice a day now going forward to real estate agents, that you've got content. You could take that nugget you learned and ask them, hey, are you doing this? Hey, this is something that I just heard about. So it's just a great strategy for you that I think you would do. What else obviously we got loan officers primarily watching this today. What else do you think when it comes to building relationship with real estate agents is something they could do today that's actionable that could, get them into another 2, 1, 2, or 3 relationships between now and the end of the year?
I feel like most people think first, like, what tool can I give you? What's the gadget I can give you that's going to help drive business that may or may not, like, the thing is who knows? I think at the end of the day, I'm just a guy that plays the long game. And so the tip I would give is just work on the relationship first. And if you have like a cool gadget or tool or lead gen source or opportunity for learning, whatever, if you have that stuff, great. Use that by all means, but just work on building the relationship. I know that sounds so simple in 101. And as a guy who sells real estate, like from a core business, like I don't really have any, like, people send me emails and stuff. No one's trying to build a business. Like, no one's trying to build a relationship first. And I just think that for me, like, that's the way my mind operates, is build the relationship first and the other things can kind of sprout off from there.
You think there's like an easy script if someone's trying to call you to try to get you to a cup of coffee that they could use to get you to actually want to show up, or would it still just be too hard unless they had a referral of a pre-approved client to give you?
Is it let's go with this. Is it a cold, like, I don't know this person?
Let's assume it's a cold call versus, and then let's also role play if
no way I'm going to coffee with someone I don't know yet, unless I know of them and there's already something about them that I want to know. But there's no way I'm going, unless I'm a brand new agent, which, I fell into that my first couple months in the business, where I was like, why do all these people want to take me to lunch or coffee? And I didn't know. So I guess you can do that with maybe people that aren't used to it or need a free lunch. But when it's cold, I think of one person in particular who just started literally showing up where I was. And when I say that, I mean at the training events that I was at the gym that I went to.
That sounds crazy.
It is, but it was also very smart and strategic, and it probably got him a few hundred loans over the last 7 years. You know what I mean? Like, so at the end of the day, I don't think you can just I just don't think going in hot and heavy, like, it's like my buddy John Cheplack would say that's like walking up to the girl at the bar and going, "Hey, want to get married and have kids?" Like, you just don't start that way, but you might start with, "Hey, my name's Todd. How's it going?"
So really could be, so what I'm hearing you say is you got to have someone who's referring it in. So like our favorite retired home warranty rep, Tony, if Tony would have said, hey, if I would have called you and said, hey, Kevin, it's, Todd Bookspan, and Tony with Fidelity Home Warranty said I should give you a call, how would that work?
Then I'm going to listen because I love Tony to death and I would do whatever Tony asked me to do. And so if I don't know you at that point, I would say, hey, you know what? Can I give you a call back later? I'm glad that Tony connected us, or maybe I have a few more minutes than that. But immediately before I actually commit myself to anything, I'm going to call Tony and ask her why. Or like, hey, what, give me a heads up on what you were thinking here with Todd. But that would absolutely get me to be a lot warmer on the front side because I have so much relationship equity with Tony and she does with me. So if Tony was like, now if Tony said, hey, Kevin, I want you to meet my friend Todd, I think you guys would get a lot out of knowing each other. Maybe you guys could have coffee or something. I'm just going to coffee because Tony asked me to. Right. So that's much different.
Yeah, and I would tell you guys, Tony is, I use Tony as an example because I know that she's a really, really good friend of Kevin's, right? I didn't pick the title rep who he doesn't really know that well. But so again, it's getting to know who is in his world that can make that introduction. I think that's really, to me, what I took away from that. Think about that. So if there's someone you're going after, can you figure out who is in their sphere that would be able to do what Tony did and connect us? Or in our case, it was Brett Tanner who connected us, right?
Yeah.
Brett said, hey, you got to go have coffee with Todd. And, that was my first sit down with Kevin, probably a decade ago.
Yeah. It's the level of trust. Like, with Brett, like if Brett told me I should meet someone, I would like, okay, because I respect Brett's opinion that high enough. Tony, I respect her opinion. We also have a long-standing relationship. I've run through a wall for her, right? So knowing that, hey, this is a person who is close to them. Like if you have that type of information and you also have a relationship with her, because the thing I trust about Tony and Brett is the fact is they're not going to ask me to spend time with somebody that's going to be a waste of my time. Like, so I can use that as a filter.
Love it. Love it.
So,
All right, who's
Kevin,
going next?
what are you learning right now, or what event, or that if this topic were being discussed, you'd be like, oh, I'm going to that because that is it's something you're studying. It would help grow you. What are some of those things that you're into right now?
Oh man. What's really funny is if you asked me this question a couple of years ago, I'd give you basically the same answer with different words, which is time to think, literally downtime. So a couple of years ago, I mean, Todd, you were there, right? I think when Keith Cunningham was in the room for 2 days with us, and there was a book called The Road Less Stupid. And the overall theme was this thing called thinking time. I'm not going to give away any more than that. But that started to really change my life and my business. And then recently I've been reading, there's a tech entrepreneur who's truthfully more of a philosopher at this point by the name of Naval Ravikant. And I've really dug into a lot of what he's had to say recently. And a lot of that is he said it this way. He said, it's really important to have empty space. And that has come up for me in so many different ways when it comes to whether it's just about creativity or thinking about my business. Because I think we've got to, if we're going to ever get to a point where we're being creative, we're actually working on something, not in the busyness of what we do. Like it doesn't come when we're scheduled and we got something else 30 minutes later. So I'm really focused on protecting time where I might actually sit there and be bored. Like I'm a believer of like, you got to get bored first. And that requires unplugging the computer, turning off the phone, the stuff that none of us want to do because it's hard to do that, but having empty space. And being able to, get bored so I can have the ideas that I want to have or think of the things I need, deeply and kind of do some of the deeper work. I'm just a big believer. And if I keep working on myself, then I'll have more value to bring to others and to my business and things like that. And he has the same guy, Naval has this concept or theory on compounding. So we all know the power of compounding interest, right? And it's really easy when we're thinking about money, but what most people in my experience miss on is that there's compounding in everything. There's compounding in relationships, there's compounding in business, there's compounding in every aspect of life. And when we go look at like compound interest, we know that the one thing that ruins that is the inability to wait. To like we prevent the power of compounding because we can't wait to oh my gosh, we made X amount of money, let me take that out. And it's the same thing. We do these withdrawals in our relationships and in our business because we're not able to sit there and be, in a way, be bored with our business or the thing and just let that compound over time. And so we're always jumping around and doing these different things, and there's a bright light over here, and that's a real challenge for me because I'm the guy, like, I do not go into expo halls because I want to buy everything.
Yeah.
Every bright shiny light, like I want to buy it all, so I just don't go in there. And so to me, it's like the power of compounding in other places besides just money.
So I love that you share that, because I think also it's the micro habits that once compounded over time can create, but we won't wait. And so a lot of the clients that I work with, or even, real estate agents, when they execute the win by noon planner and they just keep track of those, that's what I love about the planners. It has activities in there that you need to do. And if you do it and you track it long enough and you allow it to compound, you're going to see the results, but you have to be committed to those micro habits every single day to get to a level of 100 million like you have. So with that, what are some of those micro habits that your team has done just in the last 12 months to earn that 100 million spot? What are those non-negotiable activities that you would recommend agents do daily to compound the results?
So the one of them is something I said earlier. It's the 3 to thrive. Where that came from, this is so simple, you're gonna laugh, because the beginning of the pandemic, obviously everyone was like, what the F is going on here? And for even my business partner and I were like, what do we do here? Like, how do we talk to our agents? How do we try to lead these people? And the only thing we could think of is we should be calling people, not to say, I'm never the guy that says, hey, Deborah, this is Kevin. Do you have anyone looking to buy or sell? Like, that's never my phone call. Never has been, never will be. But the call, we were just trying to say, hey, let's make the call and say, Deborah, how's it going? Like, seriously, how are you guys doing? Are you safe? Healthy? Everyone's safe and healthy. And so we just figured 3 phone calls a day is something that everybody could admit is more than doable, and it rhymes with thrive. So we went with 3 to thrive as opposed to like 4 to not. I don't know. That's literally how we picked it out, and that's all that was, is like connecting with people. And so that has been the constant theme. And what I found is, when you talk about the power of compounding, the way that fits in is, so for the last more like 2.5 years, we really started focusing in on our database. Both myself and Fred, who we've got our own database that we reach out to and bring in business from for the team. But then we also started working with the members of our real estate team to do the same and to put into place a lot of these things that are a little more automatic, right? And talk about compounding. It's like we're just adding one thing on top of another, and then adding the power of making 3 phone calls a day. Like, it's almost laughable how valuable and how well that works.
Any other prospecting tips that helped in the last year?
Just to like actually do it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's face it.
Like CMA a day, we had a team that did the CMA a day challenge from February to September, and they targeted non-owner occupieds, where they got with the title rep and they found, they had this whole letter script, and it was very successful for them. So I'm curious if you had anything that worked for you in the last year that would be a task.
I've really gotten to be more of the grumpy old man of like, I just consistency. I don't care. Like, to me, that sounds like too many steps.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like complication. So I don't have to actually make the phone calls. Now, I'm not saying that it's not a good idea. It's probably really effective, but it's probably also really effective if it's not just for 30 days. My guess is there has to be a process around that. So like, especially when I think of like as a solo agent or a solo loan officer, not, you know, probably not totally solo, but it, I would say no. I would say no. Just do like do your database first, or whatever that looks. But if that's gonna be your thing, then cool. Keep doing that for like a year. Now, like, it's not 30 days. Like that's your thing. Stay in that lane and don't get out of it. Don't get out of it till it creates enough money for you to do other things. And then if I'm running, so if I've got an operation more like Todd's, where it's not just Todd, like he's got an entire staff, he's got a massive operation. He has the bandwidth to go, hey, we're going to do this. And I've got resources in my business, human resources, to be able to go and pull out that data. So that way the people doing those things, they don't have to think about all the other complicated things that come with getting fancy. And I think that that's where most people miss in our industry is we make things complicated to justify inaction. Or we do this, like, I was just having this conversation yesterday. I have so many friends that have completed, and also a lot of friends that have not been able to complete the 75 hard challenge. And there's the good part of that is like, man, that creates some really amazing habits. The other side of that coin is like no one's going to be able to do that past day 76, right? Very few people. And so what happened, instead of it, for what most people let it do, instead of that actually creating habits that will go into like day 175, what happens is it's like, oh my gosh, it's done. And then as like, we overcorrect and go back to like literally the exact opposite. And so I'm just really not a fan of getting cute with things. Like, it just keep it simple and more like stack little things as things, as you get to be more successful doing one thing, and it can almost be on autopilot, or someone else in your organization can do it, then we go add the next thing, right? So it's sequential, not simultaneous, I guess, to put it in the terms of that.
Hey guys, I want to jump in because we've only got about 13 minutes left. I do want to make sure, he mentioned Naval, and his book is The Almanac of Naval, and you say his last name a lot better than I can.
Ravikant.
But guys, it's unbelievable. I listened to the audiobook. I don't do a lot on Twitter, but this guy's worth checking out Twitter just to follow his wise comments. He's also got a lot of quotes on Instagram, but for all you mortgage professionals out there, I do think he's more of a philosopher now than a businessman, but he's a modern day business guy that, again, amazing story, great communicator. Highly recommend the book, highly recommend following on social, and I'm a big fan. I just want to make sure people connected the dot on that. Hey, before we run out of time, it looks like you're still at the EXP Con. Were there any big takeaways from that event, or anything that you think, being a reporter for the mortgage coach space, anything you think you should report to us on?
The event was amazing. I don't think there's anything groundbreaking here, right? Like, I think this was an amazing time for people to get back together in person. I'm not kidding, guys. So we had a private party last night at some club. There was more people at that party than at the first actual convention I attended a little more than 3 years ago of the same one. Like, this company has grown so big that literally the attendees of the party alone, not the event, the party, there was more people at that party than there was at the event I attended 3 years ago in New Orleans. Like, this company has just continued to take off. I think the one thing I would say, I'll say this: Grant Cardone is his wife is an EXP agent, and him and Glenn Sanford, the founder of EXP, have become pretty good friends. He said something yesterday that definitely caught my attention, which was, you guys think that everyone's talking about inflation and that they think that has to do with housing prices now. And he's like, it actually hasn't even touched housing prices yet. Like, we're not even seeing the effects of inflation yet. We're going to, but we really haven't yet. So I thought that was an interesting viewpoint for sure. And I'm, again, if we take that back into our clients and, think about the people that need to move up or move down, like there's gonna be some massive missed opportunity. We have to think more strategically.
Time
Or
out. Before you get past that, I just want to make sure folks heard that, like, and you're recommending mortgage professionals need to be able to communicate that move up or move down strategy, not just provide a rate quote, but show the family, clearly what it means to move up or move down.
yeah, we've got to be more strategic, right? Like whether I'm thinking about myself as a consumer, a realtor, or a mortgage professional, we've got to be more strategic because these companies, we talked about these big these big funds that own just thousands and thousands of rental properties. They're thinking more strategically than we are. They're not leaving equity on the table. And so we've got to be able to think more strategically if we're going to be able, otherwise, like we have the opportunity with technology, the way everything, and this is what EXP was built on, right? It was about democratizing things and giving everybody the opportunity to win, not just one person or one institution who writes the check, but giving the people, or in our case, the agents, the opportunity to win with it. Same thing's happening in housing. Like either BlackRock is going to win, and they're going to win, trust me. But the question is going to be, do our consumers win along with them? Or is it going to be all BlackRocks and, everyone else, all those other funds?
All right. And then one more question for me, and then we'll see how much time we have and where it goes. You gave kind of a self-optimization tip, because I want to spend 20 minutes with you just riffing on that. Anybody who didn't see, I think it was the first interview that Todd and I did with you. We spent a lot of time talking about sleep hacks and just self-optimization tips. I mean, the whole conversation you had around time to think and thinking time, I think is a good self-optimization tip. So I think we kind of checked it off. I'm going to schedule some jam sessions where usually I schedule my jam sessions. For me, they're 30 to 1 hour sessions where I'm working on important work. But I made note to self, start scheduling 1 or 2 thinking jam sessions. So I'm not coming in with things I have to do. I'm just coming in with, hey, don't you just think about some big problems and some big things. So thank you for that. Any other self-optimization things that you've either had a recent breakthrough, something you think is cool, anything come to mind?
The other thing is, I'll actually go back to something I started learning from Naval about a year ago and kind of revisited in the last month or two, which is really trying to get rid of my biases on things. As an example, I talked about, my opinion of Zillow has no energy around Zillow as a company, whether it's not right or wrong, good or bad. It's just a reflection of the truth of what's happening in the world, right? So being able to get rid of biases around, are things good or bad? Do I identify as a realtor? Which means if I do, then that means I need to be mad at Zillow or Opendoor or OfferPad because they're in my space, right? So I don't like getting rid of different biases and identities, so I can see things for what they really are, not who they are, or not what they are through my viewpoint as this thing I'm identifying as in this moment. And I guess that kind of comes back to, it's a very similar to the, that's another mind hack, but it's just, I think it's something that we've got to be able to do to move forward and grow. That's something Naval said, something like, if you got to be free from biases and conditioned responses, or I should say, as free as you can be from biases and conditioned responses, because it'll actually make you better everywhere. And so that includes communication with our clients, in our business, our home life, all of that stuff.
Wow, man, it sounds like we could have, and maybe we should make the next call where we're just going to talk about takeaways and mind hacks and tips from Naval. Like we should just dedicate, because I had a similar thought, although it sounds like you've done a better job. Like I listened to the book, I took some notes, I spent some time, and then when you brought it up, I just realized, you know what, I haven't really thought about the book or any of my lessons from that in like 3 months or 4 months, however long ago it was I last finished reading the book. And so it sounds like we should really put some time on the books for that.
All right, it's the new Friday Mastermind Book of the Month Club, and we're going to do a book club. So anyone who wants to read it, I saw now on my list. Actually, it's on my list because I saw Kevin comment on someone's post recently that was one of his top books. So it was already on my list, but now it's moved to the top.
Yeah,
Best
I
one by far.
never told you about it, Todd. Yeah, it's a good one. Definitely one of the best books I've read this year. Or
Hey, just one other quick aside about EXPCon is that they actually announced that two of our speakers from the Modern Real Estate Summit, one is the #1 agent at EXP in the world for gross commission income, and then another was #1 in the world for number of transactions. So when you look at the Modern Real Estate Summit, Dan Beer, #1 for GCI, and Veronica Figueroa, #1 for units.
Worth noting as well, I think Andrew Franklin was one of your speakers, right?
Yeah.
Also, he had been #1 in units and GCI for the last 3 years in a row. And my hunch is he'll be #1 again next year, but he was, I want to say, #2 in both of those categories. Like,
Well, and he
there's
got
some
married.
massive. He did, and had a baby. He's only going to sell like 1,900 homes this year. It's weird in one city.
Tell me if you think this would be a good idea, Kevin. We're seeing a lot of creativity from our community around how they're going to use that, because it's available for a year. Anybody that bought it for a year. And then we've not only got the full show in that, but they could pull specific presentations and then kind of have their own custom thing. What do you think about a mortgage professional that's targeting some agents, some EXP agents? And if they did a mastermind and lunch and learn specifically for that, and then they used our presentations of EXP agents, let's just say the 3 you just mentioned, and they leverage that, so it wasn't them saying what to do. It's like, hey, check out what Andrew's doing, and then debrief on it. Check out what whoever Kyle Whistle's doing, and then did a debriefing on it. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's a great way. I think because here's the deal, there's so many great thoughts and opinions out there and lessons, especially like where you guys just have a giant collection of them, right? The whole day was that. You could really take any of those things and probably recruit an audience to that, and then provide value but if you're going to do that, it's all those other things we talked about earlier that Deborah asked me about the lead up to it and actually getting people there, and then you got to be in it. And I also think it's probably got to be a topic that, like, you've got to be prepared to maybe start that conversation or lead that conversation, because it can't just be something I press play on while we eat lunch. Like, that's of no value, because it's too easy to zone out. So it's got to be really focused. And I think it's an amazing idea.
And remember, guys, we made custom notes for that. So you've got some from our e-learning expert notes, and the takeaway
That's
there,
perfect.
Don't just play the video and go. You need to have studied it, understood it, created actionable notes, so that you're a facilitator. You're a moderator.
I'll give you a quick example. The mastermind I did last month. What I did is, first of all, it was awesome and we brought a ton of value. But the next thing that we did is I then sent the recording of the entire day, 2 days, to my note writer, and she wrote notes, like very detailed notes on everything that was said in that room for the 2 days. And then that was my next follow-up touch piece to the attendees were, hey, I have some notes getting completed. Would you like those when I get them? Like, literally everybody said yes. And then my next follow-up after that was actually delivering the notes. And then my next follow-up after that was like, hey, what did you think of those notes? This was my favorite part. What was yours?
All right, guys, that's gold, right? I mean, you're all wondering, what am I going to say the next time I call an agent? And so those of you who attended the summit or go buy a pass today, right, you can still buy it, right? You have all those same touch points Kevin did. And so one thing I want to say, because I know some of you will drop off before the hour ends and we'll probably run a little late if Kevin can stay, is if you know agents who are thinking about EXP, have them reach out to Kevin, right? Let's support Kevin, who's supporting our community. And, even if they're not thinking about it, connect them with Kevin, join Next Level Agents. We already said it, download the Kevin and Fred podcast. These are things you can do to support him, but really the best thing that you can do is find an agent that you know and love and get them into Kevin's network at EXP, because that's the value he adds, right? If you're thinking, gosh, we've all thought it, right? I thought it too, because I've sat in those masterminds, is how do I get in that mastermind? Well, help your best agent get in that mastermind by introducing them to Kevin. So that would be my other action plan to think about for any of you that are talking to a real estate agent this week. Hey, there you go. That's an easy layup and a great, I guess you'd probably take an agent referral, huh, Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably learn to live with it.
So guys, I hope you wrote down that script he gave you, especially for anyone that did watch the Modern Real Estate Summit. What's my favorite takeaway was blank, blank, blank. What was yours? And remember, guys, you all have the notes. So there's no excuse for you not forwarding the notes to agents. And you can take those notes and make them yours. You can go to the note, copy, paste, put it into your document. And by the way, I recommend that you do that. Like, don't just take our notes and send them, make them your notes, make them personal, make them local, make them all about what you took away. We'll have a lot more value than just taking our notes and forwarding them along. Kevin, any last final thoughts before we wrap it up, bro?
Not that I can get into, because then I'll be late for my flight, but my guess is you would like that. I know for sure the three of us could probably talk for another 10 hours. So I mean, final thoughts is like, as I think about the end of the year, one thing, so the other lesson takeaway from this week's event was it's the relationships and the power of spending time with people in small groups and constantly building those. The content from stage is great. And, my viewpoint is it's also, there's like nothing new really under the sun. And so I'm personally always really selfish about spending time with top producers, people who are doing something and building relationships with them and learning from them in a smaller, more intimate setting than in a giant setting. And so that's something that has come back for us. Is one of the things Fred and I did this week is we put together mini masterminds and a bunch of different little mini events around the event for our people. And that, like, I've lost track of how many people have said that was their favorite part of the week. And so that would be it. Is being able to do that.
Yeah, no, small events around the big events, guys, and small groups and relationships is the way of the future. So guys, this is a wrap. Todd, any closing thoughts before I wrap up the call?
I've been standing here since I'm outside and I haven't been taking notes. So my action plan for you is the same as for me. Re-listen to this. I mean, there was so many nuggets that Kevin laid out, and there's easy things to implement. I think you got to start with the 3 to Thrive. That is so easy, but really think through all the other things that he talked about starting habits and being committed to the things. I mean, that's really what he talked about. And then again, I'll say it again. I've already said it a couple of times. Is follow Kevin, support Kevin, because in the end, we don't have a lot of real estate agents lining up to jump in this community. And not only do we have Kevin here, but he's just a freaking rock star. And I'm just so proud of what I've watched you build, Kevin. I'm so grateful to call you friend, and just grateful for the time that you give our community. And now let's get on the calendar for December, because I know if I say let's get on November, you're booked up. But let's make sure we get our December time going.
Let's do it, dude.
All right, guys, if you got value from this, give it a like, share it with your mortgage friends, do what Todd said, re-listen to this. Lots of wisdom, lots of takeaways. And Kevin, you're the man, bro. I'm looking forward
Thanks,
to
brother. Appreciate it. Talk to you guys soon. Thank you for having me.
This is a wrap.
All right, guys. See you next week.
See ya.